welcome to the Crochet Junkie podcast. If this is your first time joining me, thanks for joining me. And if you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back. I've had a few subscribers, so I'd like to thank y'all for subscribing. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook and Pinterest as Crochet Junkie. You can also find me on Ravelry as Crochet Junkie 6. And it's been about a week and a half since my last podcast. I tried to podcast earlier in the week, and it just didn't work out. I was interrupted by the mower. I was interrupted by the kids. It was just sort of crazy. So I didn't get a chance to do it until now. Today is Sunday, June 20th, and it happens to be Father's Day. I don't know what we'll do for Father's Day. Last week we were pretty busy. My husband, his high school friends came out. He's been friends with them since high school, so almost 20 years now. And they came out for the weekend. Last weekend we had them out, and we went and rode go-karts. My husband made ribs. It was a lot of fun to have them, but it was busy. And then the weekend, or the following week, just disappeared. Like it happens to do when we have company. I love having company out here, and being able to take them out on the lake, and it's a lot of fun. I like when people come out. We usually end up leaving on holiday weekends because it gets so busy out here. We don't like the lake traffic that comes in, so we often go to our families that's 2 hours away on those holiday weekends. I've been watching a lot of A Homespun House, and she talks a lot about her grandmother and how she got her craftiness from her grandmother, and I really related with those stories that she tells, and I wanted to tell a little bit about both my grandmothers really. My maternal grandmother, I got my love of crafting and gardening and just being outside. We were always outside. My brother and I spent our whole childhoods going to her house on the weekends. After my grandfather died, she was kind of lonely, so she just spent every weekend with my brother and I. We would go to the dollar movies, we would go to pizza buffets. It was always a lot of fun. She was really into baseball and basketball, so whenever she would watch those shows, she would quilt. She always quilted when I was a child. Before I was born, though, she would crochet and just do different crafts. But so when we spent weekends with her, she would sit there and work on a quilt, and she always had a little handcraft for my brother and me. Either I did a lot of the little pot holders on looms. We just did a lot of small handcrafts. And my aunt messaged me a while back on Facebook and said, I have a bunch of stuff from your grandmother. Would you like to have it? Because as I mentioned that my grandparents both have passed away, or all my grandparents have passed away. And I said, of course I would love to have it. And she sent me 3 crocheted afghans and a quilt. And I've mentioned before how my colors, most of my stash is a lot of yellow. A lot of yellow, green, and purple. Green and purple, most of it. And so when I pulled out this chevron afghan that my grandmother crocheted, who knows when, and it's green and purple, I was just overjoyed. This couldn't be more perfect. And so the other 2 are up on the girls' beds. And I also have this quilt that she made when Tim and I got married. She was still alive then, and she made us this, and it actually, I used it on our bed for years and years, and so it's got a place where it needs repaired, and I sent it back to her, and she had it for a while in a box, and then when she passed away, I got it back, and it's been in a box in my closet, so it's definitely something that needs to be taken out. And she hand stitched everything. her patches, her borders, her backing. She was a hand quilter. Um, she also she loved to go to the fabric shops and get all of the yarn. My grandmother was very frugal, extremely frugal. So she would get all of the fabric. She would buy yarn on sale. All of her afghans and things are made with, the cheap acrylic yarn. Um, and she would get the fabric that was on sale that like nobody wanted, the most loud, obnoxious colors you could possibly find. And it's funny because it fit her personality. She was just a character. She was loud and boisterous and just, you couldn't help but smile when she was in a room. And so she also made this one, and you see what I mean about the kind of just, the colors definitely go together on this blanket. It's not a bad looking quilt. It's just not something that's everybody's style or taste. I really quite like the olive green and the orange. Those are some of my colors that I really love. So I love this blanket, and I love how it's just really summertime. And this one actually lays on my guest bed. And so I really especially treasure those now that my grandmother's no longer here, but I really love that the tradition carries on. And I can't wait to see how my girls, what they create, if they're creative. Well, they already are creative. And my oldest daughter actually made these little buttons for me. My dad got her a polyamor clay set for Christmas. They're all the same. She made me 5 of them. They're just little leaf buttons. I'm not going to show you all of them. But she made me these. I use a lot of whimsical type of buttons on my projects, and for Mother's Day, she made me these buttons, and I'm going to use them. I started a sweater when I was pregnant with my 4-year-old, so a long time ago, for my 9-year-old. So obviously it's not going to fit the 9-year-old now, but it will fit the 4-year-old. So I think I'm going to put these on that sweater because it's like a woodland tree friends sweater. It's got a bunch of appliques of squirrels and owls and tree branches and little things all over it. So I think these buttons would be perfect for that. She also made this really cute magnet. So she just drew the little branch and used some glitter glue for the flowers and then put a magnet on the back. I told her if she wants to keep making these, we'll have to get her some cardstock or something because this is just like a piece of printer paper. But we needed more magnets. Our refrigerator is ridiculous. It has a lot of pictures on it. And Atrella found this one and she decided to make this, and I just thought that was really neat. I will talk about that. Atrella is my oldest daughter's name, and it's spelled Atrella, and she was actually named after my maternal grandmother. I spent, like I said, my whole childhood with her, and she left a lasting impression on my life. And she passed away when Atrella was about 2, so she didn't know her and spend time with her, but I always loved uncommon names. My name is Amber, so being raised in the 80s and 90s, it's a really common name, and I never wanted that for my children. I wanted my children to have unique names, or uncommon names that you don't hear a lot, and so I named them Atrella and Prudence, and we like their names. They get compliments on their names constantly. It's really nice. But Atrella also made this. It's just a finger chain. She made everyone's scarves. So this is mine, and her dad has one, and that's all it is. It's just a little scarf. I've tried to set her down with a hook and some yarn, and she's gotten about, I don't know, maybe 5 rows on a dishcloth. She's not into it. And she has a loom too, the little loom to make pot holders, and she's made a few of those. But she really likes drawing. Drawing is absolutely her medium. She I'm trying to think. She really likes Legos too. Anything that has to do with construction and putting things together. I don't know that I mentioned this on a previous episode or not, but the dress that I entered into our state fair, she also entered a VW bus that she built from Legos. So there's a kit from item from kits division or something like that. I can't remember the exact name of the entry, but you can enter an item you made from using a kit. So she had this Lego kit that she got for Christmas that was a VW bus, and it's 1,300 pieces. And she came home from school every day for about a week and worked on it for about 3 hours a day, and then entered that, and she won first place, the grand champion prize. And so we both won that, me on my dress and her on her VW bus. And I'll have to get it for the next podcast to show you because it's quite intricate. The little doors open. It has seating in it. I mean, she really had to build this from the wheels up. So my other grandmother, I mentioned, my paternal grandmother, come here, Roger. She gave me my love of reading, gave me and my daughters our love of reading. Come here, Roger, come here. And of dogs. She was a dog trainer, and Roger's sleeping. I'm trying to get him to come here. Come here, Roger. She was a dog trainer and actually had a rescue of sorts. She would rescue dogs. She had a ton of dogs. Come here. And when she passed away, I went and stayed with her for a while when she was sick, and stayed with my dad after she passed away, working out the arrangements and things. And this little guy, Roger, he did not take her death very well at all. And my dad and my grandmother and my dad combined have about 20 dogs on 55 acres. And he was just getting picked on by some of the bigger dogs, and he wasn't very happy there. And when my grandmother passed away, he was her bedmate, and so he was just heartbroken. And he attached himself to me, so he ended up coming home with me. Now, Roger is not a dog that I would go to a shelter and pick. He is a rescue dog, and I advocate rescuing, but he's just not the type of dog I would pick. My grandmother loved rat terriers. She always had a rat terrier with this little raccoon face, and so he definitely reminds me of her and definitely makes me feel like I have a piece of her. But I love big dogs. Small dogs like this worry me because they're small. They can get hurt easy. They can't protect themselves. Like I said, living out here in the country, we have to worry about coyotes. He cannot be outside by himself even in the middle of the day because I've shot a coyote at noon that was in our yard. So they definitely come out. It doesn't matter what time of day. They're a threat. So I have to be careful and mindful about where he is at and things versus the big dogs that I don't have to worry about because they can care for themselves, other than the basics, food, water, things like that. I did go to my first knit night. Oh, let me show you this right quick. Mr. Roger used to have privileges that the bigger dogs don't. We have our bedroom, the master bedroom is downstairs, and the rest of the bedrooms are upstairs. And we have stained concrete floors throughout the house, except for in the bedrooms, there's carpet. Well, the dogs aren't allowed on the carpet since we rent. Roger being the exception. He can go upstairs, he can go in our room, he's my little bedmate, he keeps my feet warm, until he tore up this cushion. It's just a corner-to-corner pattern, nothing fancy, but he tore it up in two different places. Oh, look, there it is. Oh, wasn't that just the most rotten thing to do? This dog is pampered, and then he's just going to tear up my hand-stitched cushion cover. So now he's being punished. He has been forced to not be on the carpet now. He's been exiled. But back to, I went to knit night. I went to knit night last Thursday, not this past Thursday, but the Thursday before. It was a lot of fun. I mentioned my yarn store is 65 miles, so I don't think I'll go every week. I'm pretty crappy at distance driving by myself. I don't do well. I tend to fall asleep, even with coffee. And so my husband feels like he thinks if I go once a month or maybe every 2 weeks there's something, it will leave it exciting enough to leave me enough energy for the drive. That way I'm not getting lethargic and nodding off driving down the road. But I went to my first knit night, and I went saying that I wasn't going to spend any money. I had enough stash. Remember, we're doing the stash dash? Did that happen? No. It's the yarn store, and I don't go a lot. So anytime I'm there, I need yarn. So I did end up getting some things. I had been wanting this bag. Now, the last time I went in there was Mother's Day, and I got a bunch of stuff for Mother's Day, and I kind of wanted this bag, but I was like, oh, I'm getting all this other stuff. I don't want to be greedy. I don't know why. I did nothing but think about this bag for weeks and weeks and weeks, so of course the next time I was there, I had to get it. So here's my bag. And Knitting Expat, Mina, has started sewing project bags, and they're really cute. I love the fabrics that she chooses. But with her scraps, she decided to sew quilt all of her scraps of her project bags together, and then she put them on the back of a canvas bag that she carries around. And I was really blown away by that. I think that bag is just gorgeous. And I was also inspired to use that idea on this bag. To do on the back, it's just plain canvas, and I just pin these on. So I finished a few, like 5 more of these sunflowers, and you see I still have tails and things. And I thought it would be so cool to do them on here. I ran out of the center yarn. I mentioned on a previous episode I wanted to do this as a table runner, but I was scared about not having enough yarn. And this one in the very center at the bottom actually has no contrasting brown. It's just the plain brown because I did run out. And I could have bought more, but honestly this was a stash busting project. If I'm buying more yarn for my stash busting project, it defeats the purpose. And then I'm left with more of the yarn that I'm trying to get rid of. But I thought that was enough. Yeah, it's only going to take up half the bag, and a little bit is going to fold over. But I even thought on the front side to do some different pins and things, maybe knit like a heart, maybe knit, I've seen like the Junk Yarn podcast, and I think also the Yarn Gasm podcast. They both knit like a little bird and one knit a little bunny, and so maybe knitting those and just attaching a pin on them so I can adjust their placement would be fun. There's nothing on the inside, so no pocket or anything. So I went up to my craft room thinking I could hand stitch a pocket. Again, I'm not the greatest sewer, but I thought I could hand stitch a pocket, and I found this fabric. I thought that would be really pretty for an inside pocket. Just a simple little pocket. And while I was digging around in my craft room, I had mentioned in a previous episode that I wanted to do or try my hand at embroidery or cross stitch, and I thought it would be fun to take these straps, and I have a bunch of embroider floss. My mother-in-law bought me a book and bought me some floss one year because I'd mentioned wanting to learn embroidery. So I have all the colors to be able to do sunflowers, just like on my bag. So I thought it would be fun to stitch along. Obviously, I would practice on some scrap fabric and learn before I attempted to do it on the bag. And while I was digging around, though, I was going through my sewing machine that I inherited from my husband's grandmother. She was also crafty. We have a couple of Afghans that she crocheted, but she mostly sewed. She sewed a lot of my husband and his dad, or his, not my husband's, but my husband's dad's clothes and all of her children. She sewed all of her children's clothes. And so I was digging around through her thread and different things, and I think old thread just amazes me. So I got these two to help sew on my sunflowers, and they're both wooden spools. And this one says 19 cents. Now, you can't go to the store and buy thread for 19 cents. It's going to cost you a couple of dollars, and it comes on a crappy plastic spool. I just love that I have some of her craft stuff, and that this one says 30 cents, but it's still a wooden spool full of thread. And I love that I have her sewing machine and some of her craft stuff that I can sort of reuse it or put new life into it. I also found these up there, and these are still in the package, these little embroidered flowers that she purchased, and I wish she was still with us so I can ask her, why did you get these? What project did you have in mind? What did you want to use them for? I thought I could do, now I thought about just doing more green stitching around all of these so it would encompass the whole canvas, but I don't want it to take away from the yellow, so I don't want to have too much green. So I thought about just putting these, since I only have two, I would have to do something else on the ends, but I just think that would be such a neat addition, and it's just so special because it has a story behind it. It came from my grandmother, because she was essentially my grandmother. My husband and I have been together a long time, and I spent a long time with her before she passed away, and we, of course, related over our craftiness. A Homespun House also talks about how she really always related to her grandmother's friends, and I can relate to that as well, because throughout my whole friendship history, I have really related to a lot of my friends' parents, and I actually, on many of those occasions, I feel like I'm better friends with their parents, or I have more in common with their parents than I do with my friend themselves. One instance in particular that comes to mind is my friend that I made when we lived down in Austin. She's a hilarious girl, a real firecracker, but her mother knits, her mother is she's crafty, she has the same sort of sense of humor that I do, and I joke all the time with people that I was born in the wrong era, that I should have been born before I was, because of my interests and hobbies and things are unconventional for this time, but they were a lot more conventional back in the 50s, back in the 60s. People did handcrafts and stayed at home and raised their kids, and just lived the lifestyle that I try to live, and like gardening and raising animals. It does happen now, but it's a lot more rare for you to find people who live a sustained lifestyle. But so that was kind of off topic. Back to knit night. So when I went to knit night, I got that bag. Loved that bag. I was so excited. And I went there with a couple of projects. And they were actually doing, I'll show you my work in progress, or my finished objects. I should have already done that. I'll show you all this in a minute. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. I apologize for my spacey behavior. That's kind of just how I am. Sort of random, and I'll say stories as I think of them. I'm trying to get better, especially with when I'm doing the podcast, about like having an actual, I have notes here in front of me, having an organization, having it organized and being able to talk about key points with you guys. But back to knit night. So I went to knit night and I had some projects that I was working on, a crochet project and a knit project. And I was sitting there working on them, and I didn't want to work on my shawl because it was kind of taking, I was having to read the pattern and I didn't want to have to use my mind, obviously. I'm at night, I want to talk. And so I worked on my husband's ankle socks that I've been working on, and as I was working on those, everyone else there is doing a knit along. And they're all knitting along, and I mentioned that I'm kind of new, so I don't think that I could do that pattern very well. And they said that if I could do the diagonal dishcloth, which I had mentioned making, that I could do this. So, and then someone said something about them all getting together and taking a picture at the end of their project. And that nailed it for me. I was like, a picture? A picture at the end? Okay, I want to do it too. And so I had to, of course, get the yarn so I could start right then. Screw the yarn diet, right? And I needed needles. I needed more needles anyway. I went in fully knowing that I wanted to buy a few different needles because, as I've said, I'm new to knitting. I don't know what I like. I definitely haven't tried everything that's out there. So I got some carbons after listening to endless podcasters go on and on and on about how much they love carbons. I was like, I have to try those. They're terrible. I really, 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 really dislike them. I could not dislike them more. My biggest problem with them is I feel like they grab the yarn, and that might be because the yarn I'm using is a single ply, and it's sort of grabby anyway, but I just don't see me liking these on any type of yarn. I think that the yarn will drag. It doesn't have a smooth glide. Somebody that finds needles slippery might appreciate that, but I feel like it just takes too long and it's cumbersome, and I'm sitting there going like this and having to push this, and I'm going to return these. Next time I go to knit night, I am returning these. I got this far on the project. I think I went Thursday, worked on it a little bit there, worked on it a little bit Friday, and by Saturday I was just like, forget these needles. I am going to order some more online. And so I did. I got on Jimmy Bean's wool. I love them. God, their shipping is like ridiculously fast. I ordered 2 different sets of needles, and they got here, I think, they got here Monday, and I ordered them on Saturday. So it was really fast. And then so I could cast on using the new ones. And the new needles I got Knitter's Pride again, but the Nova Platina. I have some DPNs that I love that are Nova Platina cubics. Well, the circulars, I like the actual needle. It's really smooth, like the yarn slides like butter. But the join is it catches just a little bit. I really like my Addy circulars, but not my Addy DPNs. I really like my Knitter's Pride Nova DPNs. So I'm all over the map. I don't like carbons. I like my Nova DPNs and my Addy circs. And with straight needles, I think I really like my rainbow knit picks, my rainbow knit picks. So yeah, it's really hard though. It's frustrating because with crocheting, I feel like I could always just grab one hook and be able to make a multitude of things. Whereas with knitting, I need a different size cable needle. I'm like, I have the right size needle, but only a 24-inch cable, whereas I need a 32-inch cable. That's extremely frustrating. So I mentioned we're doing a knit along. This is what we're knitting along. It's the 3-color cashmere cow. And I'm really bummed. I feel like the yarn store it makes me inebriated. So I go in there and I'm like mesmerized by all the texture and the colors, and I forget what I'm in there for. Again, with the disorganized brain. I forget what I'm in there for. Everything goes out the window and I'm like, colors. And I start that's what I gravitate for first, the colors. And I really need to stop buying yarn based on color. I need to be pickier and start really realizing what kind of yarn I like working with, because I'm definitely a process crafter. I like the process. The item at the end is great, and it's a lot of fun to have this finished item, but it's the process. It's the picking of the yarn. It's the working with it. It's finishing the item. Everything about the process I like. And so I don't really care for this yarn that I picked. I love the colors, and that's about it. It's really soft, and the garment that I'm working up is really nice, but I just wish I had gotten cashmere yarn for the cashmere cow. So I already did my second color, or my first color change. These colors aren't showing up very well. It looks like a raspberry, doesn't it? My husband said that last night. He's like, "What are you making? Is it a piece of fruit?" No, it's not a piece of fruit. So this pink magenta like fuchsia yarn, it's all Madeline Tosh Light, I think. Tosh Merino Light. So this is this colorway, Lepidoptera. And it's magenta or like a fuchsia with flashes of purple. God, it's gorgeous. I really love it. And it's completely an unrealistic representation on this camera. And so my second colorway, the green, is Jade. And again, it's Madeline Tosh Merino Light. Jade, and they're all 420 yards, fingerling weights, 100% superwash. In my third color, I picked Dandelion, and these colors are way more saturated than this. But so this is where I am so far. So this is where I was when I quit on those needles, and then I banged this out. As soon as I got these new needles, I feel like this worked up really quick, even with me being a slow knitter. And I don't mind that I'm slow. And ignore my ugly tails over here. Those will get weaved in. But I really like this pattern. Everything I knit, I am trying to learn a new technique or something new that I don't know. That way I'm building my stitch database in working projects. Like with my first, I learned decreasing. With my second, I learned shaping. The socks, obviously, learned socks. And with this project, this is my first color change project. So I got this bag at Knit Night too. And I haven't gotten very far on my owl eyes shawl. I'm almost to where the pattern starts to repeat, but I had to rip it back a few times. I was reading it, and then I'd make it, and then rip it back. And then rip it back again, and rip it back again. And I did that like 4 times, and finally I printed out the pattern, because I was looking at it on my computer. I printed out the pattern, and looked at the chart. And I've never followed a chart before, but that just like a light bulb went off, and I got like 5 rows done. And I was like, this chart is so great. I love charts. And so this is the pattern. Obviously mine's going to be white, and it's a free pattern, so I can show you the chart. And you ever have those moments where you see somebody doing something and you're like, that is so simple, why have I never thought of that? See this page protector to hold my pattern? I've never thought of that, and often that's why I always use my phone or something, because I don't want my patterns messed up. But a lady at Knit Night had her pattern in a page protector, and I was just like, why on earth have I never thought to do that? That is ridiculous. So I also, talking about project bags, watching podcasts, y'all have enabled me to start collecting project bags. I usually just toss my yarn in whatever bag I'm carrying, but that makes the yarn get messed up, and then that's frustrating, and it makes me sad, and I was like, why don't I get project bags? So I got the tree one. It's a tree print. It's just like branches. Kind of pinky, purple. I really like it. It's small, so it will go in my purse, and it's perfect for socks or a shawl or something. And then I got this one. So I went online to look at project bags on Etsy, and I was looking and looking and looking and looking, and I saw this one. You guys, it's chickens, okay? Like, I had to have it. And look at the inside fabric. Eggs. Oh my god. Oh my god. And it's bird leg bags. Bird leg bags. What a silly name, huh? And she has a bunch of cute bags in it. It's got this cool little wrist strap, which I really like. And she has a zipper pull that is a egg, y'all. It's an egg. How freaking cute is this bag? So while I was looking at bags, I also decided I needed a new tape measure because my 4-year-old, she loves to measure things, write down her little numbers, and she's practicing, so whatever. Well, she couldn't find her tape measure, so she wanted to use mine, my Lantern Moon tape measure that has a flower on it, and she broke it. She pulled it out too far and it won't go back in because, you know, it has little clickums. So I found a replacement. It's a chicken with an egg. Again, this couldn't make me happier. Like, and it matches my project bag, so I mean, this just, it's the little things in life, and this little thing will make me smile for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks while I use it. So now that I kind of went all over the place, I will show you my finished objects. So I did finish the other sock, the ankle sock, and even though these are just like store-bought socks as far as how far down the ankle is, I would lengthen the heel. Next time I'm going to make him ankle socks, I'm definitely going to lengthen how much heel he has. And even he said that he would like more heel, that it bothers him on his store-bought socks that it doesn't have. So this is the Patton's Croy Clover, and I really like this yarn. It's not showing up very well, obviously. That's better. So it's just like a 4-ply yarn, and it alternates what color strand is plied. So it just gives it this subtle self-striping. I really like it, and he does too. And my mother-in-law saw them, and she really liked it. And so I made those, and I also have mentioned this. I had mentioned this on my first podcast. I said that I had blocked. No, it was a work in progress that I never showed you. And then my second podcast, I mentioned that it was my first thing that I ever blocked. And again, I didn't have it to show you. So I went and pulled it out of the closet, and it's just a little shrug. And I mentioned that we live in Texas, so it's always really hot outside. I'm often wearing tanks or t-shirts, and then when we go into a restaurant, it's like 60 degrees, 65 degrees in there, and I'm freezing. So I like to make different little sweaters and tanks to take, and tops to take. This one I got out of the Crochet Red pattern book, and she used 2 different colors in her design. And I had this yarn, I've had it for about 2 years, no, a year. It's Blue Heron's yarn, and it's a variegated rayon metallic yarn. And I probably started a project with this about 5 times, and I ripped everything out because of the variegated made it all look just tubusy. It was not anything that I would want to wear. And so I was looking through all my stuff, trying to find something, And I happened across that, and I thought, that's probably going to be perfect. And it really is, because now I can wear a purple top or a red top or a navy top even, and this will go with all of that. So it's really versatile and pretty fancy. It's a luxury yarn, so it's I had to end 2 rows short, I think, on each side because I ran out of yarn. But I did not want to buy more and then have scrap yarn that I somehow would have to figure out a new project for. And so while I was getting that down from the closet, I found something that I made 4 years ago, and I've never used it. And again, with the pink purple color, the yellow, and the green. I'm pretty obsessed with those colors. And it's just a granny square flower, and I stitched them all together, and then I did a little strap, and I used ribbon in this strap to keep them from getting stretched. And I've never used it, so I don't know how well it would hold up in use, but it seems like, I've tried to stretch it several times, and it seems like it would do really good. And I also hand stitched, again, I'm not a sewer, and this is how much I love y'all, because I'm about to show you my hand sewing, and it's not pretty. So I hand stitched the liner, and then this little pocket, just a phone pocket, is actually, if you look at a bunch of my really old videos on YouTube, you'll see me wrapping my baby. And those are those baby wraps. Sometimes I would have different scraps of them, and that's one of them, one of the little baby wraps that I carried her in, a scrap of that, which is really special because I can remember, the summer that we had this wrap and the adventures that we took on it, and it's just sort of a nice touch. So I mentioned my husband's friends coming, and something that's kind of funny, my husband is really supportive of my crafts, as I've mentioned before. He listens to me when I talk about my projects. He asks me about what I'm working on. The other day, while we were at supper, I was working just like while we were waiting on the meal. I take my knitting or crocheting everywhere we go, and he's never been bothered by it. I'll sit in the car on our drives and work on something. At a restaurant, if we're sitting and waiting for the check or something, I'll take it out and do a few stitches. I mean, it's never bothered him. And so he was watching over my shoulder of me working on a sock, and he said, and I use DPNs, and he said, so one's just replacing the other? And I just think it's so sweet that he takes that much of an interest that you would watch me do my handcrafts. And on that note, when his friends were here, one of them had on these cargo shorts, and I'm drawn to buttons. I mean, I collect buttons. I have quite the stash of buttons, and you can never have too many because you never know when you're going to find that project for that button that you have. And so his friend had these amazing silver buttons on his shorts, and I just sort of like reached out and touched them because I didn't know what they were made of, and I'm a very tactile person. I have to put my hands on things. So often when we're watching movies or something, I'll nudge him, and I'm like, look at that guy's suit. I just want to touch it because I do. I mean, the texture of things really excites me. And so I touched that button just to see what it was made of because I couldn't really tell, and it was a metal button. And as soon as I reached out and touched that, my husband saw me, and he goes, I know, I've been looking at that button. It's cute, right? I just died. He just stood there in front of his friends, and he'll act like a total, it doesn't matter. Like, he can say anything, and they can make fun of him, and he's self-confident enough in his masculinity to be able to say things like cute or to like pink. For instance, he was playing video games with our daughters the other day, and his character, whatever, he picked a girl or a pink something, or I don't know, and my 9-year-old said, well, that's a girl thing, and he goes, let me tell you something. If you ever meet a man who has to have a certain color to feel like a man, he's not a man. And I just thought that was a really nice life lesson for her. It's something that we try to instill into her all the time. And why she said that, I don't know. But often, both her and her dad, me and her dad, go and tell her, people are different, people like different things. Her favorite color is blue, so she should be the first person to understand colors are for everybody, not just uh, boys or girls. And so, on that note, though, my husband was giving me a very hard time about my project bags and saying, uh, why can't you just use a Ziploc bag? Come on now, because it's not cute. You know this. It's not an attractive thing for me to look at. Just like with the sugar bowl. I told y'all I love thrifting. I go thrift shopping a lot, and I actually got a little sugar bowl that looks like a strawberry. And it's just small things like that. And he actually really likes it. When he saw that, he was like, "Oh, where'd you get this?" And I told him at thrift shop for $1. And he was like, "Oh, that's so awesome." And he appreciates the beauty that I provide him in life, whether he wants to admit that or not. So I think that is all I have for today. I really thank y'all for joining me and wanting to hear about my crafts. I hope y'all have a great week, and I'll see y'all next time.